I come from frugal people. My parents raised 5 kids on 1 blue-collar salary, and they took gardening very seriously. We had 3 gardens, one of them the size of a basketball court just for potatoes. I spent so many hours in that garden. And when I found out that IGA sold potatoes for 10 cents a pound, I was like, excuse me. I am never stepping foot in that potato garden again. I will buy my own potatoes. Thank you very much. Fast forward about 40 years, I am not only growing and eating my own homegrown tomatoes, kale, and of course potatoes, I'm also eating my own words. Lesson learned, never say never. My family also had frugal, down-home ways toward pets. Our family dog slept in a cardboard box in the garage. Moving to this more sophisticated college town where people take their fur babies to bed with them. Not me. I knew that the fur baby mentality was incompatible with my thoughts about animals. So I just resigned myself that I was never going to be a dog person. That's all right. And then late one night, I was on Facebook. My bad, I know, but there I was, couldn't sleep, and the algorithm gods popped up a cute little picture of a little terrier named Melvo. And I guess you know where it's going, right? I am now that person. For Christmas this year, I bought myself a king-size bed, so I had room for little Melvo to snuggle with me. And then I bought him some little stairs so he could get up in bed a little easier. That's who I am. But I do not call him my fur baby. Oh, no. He's my baby dog. It's true, it's true. I had my never rules about dating too, and the big one was I was never going to date a man who was on the rebound. So I accepted a date from a man, and then he told me that his fiance had recently broken up with him, and I was like, okay, well that's fine, but this is not a date. This isn't a date, we're just going to go out for dinner, it's fine. A week later, our first kiss, and now I've been married to Kevin for 27 years, so there you go. You'd think I'd learn, never say never, right? But I come from hard-headed people. Germans, hard-headed Germans, we want things to be black and white. We want to say never and mean it. But I have learned that you can't always say never and mean it. Life is sometimes lived in the gray, and I watched this with my mom taking care of my grandma who was dying from Alzheimer's. She wanted things to be black and white too. We got a care plan together, we know this is how it's going to go, but as soon as you get a care plan together, something changes, it progresses, and everything changes, right? There is no black and white, there is no roadmap to follow. But my mom was clear about one thing. She told us, if I ever get like that, I want you to put a pillow over my head. That's what she said. She told me, she told my sister, she told my dad. I was like, okay, I hear you. My elderly friend Nance, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she told me the same thing. She said she wasn't going to live with it. She was going to end her own life. I didn't know if she was serious or not. Maybe she was just being dramatic like my mom was with the pillow comment. But then one day she came to art class. She's a 70, 80-year-old woman, and she came to art class and she told me she had a new tattoo. I was like, a tattoo? Let me see. So she showed me her tattoo right above her breast. It said, do not resuscitate, right here. Yeah, where the paramedics wouldn't miss it. And then a couple of weeks later, she came to art class and she told me, I'm going to do it soon, Sandra. And I was like, really? What? No, Nance, what are you talking about? You're fine. You're still driving. And she explained to me, you have to do it yourself. It's not something that somebody can do for you. And with dementia, you have to do it early so that you can do it. And it's exactly what she did. She, as I euphemistically say, transitioned herself. I was sad, but yet I was extremely proud of her for making her own decision. A few years later, when my mom was about 75, we began to notice some strange behavior. We were out to eat, and she was drinking out of our cups and eating off of our plates, sometimes making some comments in public that weren't appropriate. We didn't worry too much about that then, but then I knew one day when I went down to do some crafting with her, and she's a lifelong seamstress, and she couldn't put two right sides of fabric together to make a pillow. And then I knew something was going on, and we started doctoring with a neurologist, and they confirmed a dementia diagnosis. They thought it was Alzheimer's. By 2019, it had progressed, as dementia does, to the point where Mom was no longer able to get out of bed by herself. So I was often down helping my dad take care of her, and I went in to help her get out of bed one morning, and she was crying, and I said, "Mom, what's going on? What can I do? How can I help?" And she said, "I'll be fine as soon as I get my head under the pillow." Well, I just crawled in bed with her and cried. Thoughts swirling around in my head, remembering my grandma's own last sad years in the nursing home, remembering Nance and herself transitioning, and of course remembering my mom's own words to me, to us. And I think she was asking me to do it in the only way she knew how. But I couldn't do it. I didn't do it. The doctors finally realized that Mom's dementia was not Alzheimer's, but rather it was frontotemporal dementia, which you probably never heard of before until Bruce Willis got public with it last week. His family talked about him having FTD, and the whole world found out that FTD is not just for flower delivery anymore. That's a different thing. FTD is a lot like Alzheimer's. At the end, they end up in the same place, but they start differently. With Bruce Willis's, it started with speech aphasia. That's what his family has said. He started losing words. Sometimes it starts with just bad decision-making because your front lobes are where your impulse control happens. And so you start not having if you feel like eating off of somebody's plate, you eat off of their plate. If you feel like not wearing a bra anymore, like my mom did, you stop wearing a bra. Not that I begrudged her that. We learned that FTD is usually random. Haven't heard that Bruce Willis's wasn't. We never heard that his family had it. But in some cases, it is genetic to the point that each offspring has a 50-50 chance of carrying the gene. It all began to add up. My grandma did not have Alzheimer's. My uncle, my mom's brother, who was in the nursing home by the time he was in his 60s, had also had FTD, and then my mom got diagnosed, and we had her tested for the gene, and it turned out she had the gene. So now we knew the cold hard facts. Each of my siblings and I each had a 50-50 chance of carrying the gene. And per the medical literature, if you carry the gene, you will inevitably get and die of FTD unless you die of something else first. And tragically, FTD is usually what gets you because it's also got the terrible symptom of being early onset for most people. A lot of people get it in their 50s, as Bruce Willis did, because he's in his early 60s now and he's already down the road with it. So we had some decisions to make. My siblings and I each had to decide whether or not we wanted to be tested or not. Some of us decided yes, some of us no. I knew I would get tested because I'm the kind of person who faced things head on, and I wasn't too frightened about it because I'm 60 years old and I'm fine. So I thought we're probably fine. But before I got tested, I was thinking, I needed to make up my mind about one thing first. Did I want to buy long-term care insurance? Yeah. So I weighed it out. If the test was positive, would I assist in my own death early, as Nance had done? If so, I didn't need the long-term care insurance. But if I was willing to spend the last years of my life in a nursing home, then I'd like to have the long-term care insurance, and I needed to buy it before I was tested so that if I was tested positive, it wouldn't be a pre-existing condition. So it was a big decision I was facing, whether or not to buy the insurance. And I made up my mind. I decided not to buy the insurance because I made up my mind that no matter what, I was never going into the nursing home, which means I plan to follow Nance's lead in self-transition. That is if I had the gene, which I didn't know yet, but I had to make the decision. So having made the decision, I was tested, and yes, I do have the gene, right? So what now? Well, being who I am, I immediately started researching. I wanted to research 3 things. First, how to prevent it. What to do to hold off the dementia as long as I can. And I came up with a plan. It's called All the Things. I'm doing all the things. Yes. I changed my diet. Yes, all the things. I changed my diet to a non-inflammatory diet. I do yoga. I use my CPAP for sleep. I get my cardio up every day. I do affirmations. And I do positive thinking. I take supplements. I learn to play the ukulele. I eat more blueberry and kales than is right for any one person, I swear. Maybe you have an idea about something else I should do. Maybe you have thought of something that I haven't named there, but believe me, I'm already doing it. I do all the things, all of them, all the things, exactly. Secondly, I started researching about clinical trials, and thank God. This is a very rare dementia. FTD is rare enough, but the genetic variety that I have, even rarer, but it is the dementia that is closest to having a cure. And there's actually a drug in phase 3 of a clinical trial. So if you want to do something for me, pray that they get this drug developed before my family needs it. Yes. Finally, the third thing I researched was if and when I have to do it, how would I transition myself? I researched the laws in other states and in other countries, and I put it in my last will and directive so that if I was found dead, people would know that it wasn't a rash decision and it wasn't something that anyone influenced me about or assisted me with. It was my own decision. So I was doing all this research and dealing with all of this, and at the same time, I was taking care of my mom. And it was quarantine time, so I was there every day taking care of her. We were quarantined together, my mom and dad and I. And it was both a blessing and a curse. It was a curse because it was really hard to watch the possible very sad trajectory play out in front of me of how my own life might end. But it was a blessing because taking care of my mom changed me. My love for her grew every day. It just grew deeper and deeper. She was the sweetest thing, which, by the way, is not typical of FTD by any means. It is not. But she was. And her and I developed this little routine. She was in a recliner, and I'd sit on the edge of the recliner, and I'd snuggle up to her heart to heart and look her in the eye and talk to her. And I started asking her a lot. I'd say, "Are you my mom?" And she'd say, "Yeah, I'm your mom." And some days she'd say, I don't think so. One day I asked her, "Are you my mom?" And she said, "No, are you my mom?" I feel like it. I feel like your mom right now. So that was during the pandemic, and then during the after school started in that year, she moved into my house in Urbana, and I wanted to be there because I wanted to homeschool my grandson at the time. So I was wrangling him, Eli, to get his schoolwork done, and my mom, who was practically nonverbal by this time, she was over in the living room, and I was in the kitchen trying to get him to do it, and his homework and his schoolwork, and Pretty soon, though, nonverbal though she is, she pipes up, "You sound just like your mother." And I was like, "What?" She was not wrong. I did sound just like her when she was wrangling her 5 kids to get their schoolwork done at her kitchen table. So many times, just when I would think that there was nobody home, she would show me that she's still in there. I remember that during her last summer, she was sitting at her patio, and I put a pen and paper in front of her, and I said, "Will you make a gratitude list, Mom?" Which was very much in keeping with who my mother was. And she wrote the word humming, reflecting the hummingbirds that she'd been watching. And then she wrote the word ice cream, reflecting the treat I'd just given her. And then she wrote the single word, you. I know. Yeah, it was just like that. It was all so sweet. Not that there weren't shit shows. Both figurative and literal. And all manners of family drama and hard things to contend with. But the overwhelming thing was love. So much love. As my heart opened to her, my heart opened. I became more compassionate toward her, toward myself, toward my dad. I repaired a long-standing, strained relationship with my dad, beyond repair. It just blossomed. I got the gift of watching my sister, my husband, my son, my brothers, even my grandson, step up and care for her in a way that I did not know that we were capable of. When she slipped away in my spare bedroom that December night, it was not the depressing, tragic end that I had envisioned. So one day, I'll likely be faced with the decision. Do I go with my initial decision, my carefully laid out plan A, like Nance did, and self-transition? I'm telling you right now, I will not say never. And I will fight for the right of everyone to make their own end-of-life decisions. But I'm also thinking about how my heart grew and how much I grew spiritually stronger because of my time all the way to the end with my mom. Maybe I'll decide that I believe in and can trust in the care and compassion and love of my family and my friends and my community, of you and you and you. Maybe I'll decide that I too can be spoon-fed and diapered and wiped without losing my dignity, but just as a normal part of the human experience. I thought I was sure, but today, I don't know. I'm living in the gray because life has shown me never say never.